Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Maria KOROLOV, and I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. And today I'm here to tell you that the top free speculative fiction book on Amazon is actually a box set of 10 epic fantasy books that are part of almost the entire series is there. It is super cool and a great read. But before we get to that, we've got 9 other books to talk about. You see, every single Friday, the team here at MetaStellar reads the first few chapters of every book on Amazon's top 10 free list. Today, I was helped out by community members, SOPHIE, GORJANCE, and Alex MUELLER. Hey, Sophia. Hey, Alex.
Thanks for having us.
As well as by community members, Alex KOROLOV and Lilibet Dominguez-Torres, but those two couldn't make it here today. All right, so the link to the article and to all the books is in the description box below. And for those who are new, MetaStellar is an online magazine of speculative fiction. All the content is always free to our readers. We publish original short fiction, reprints, excerpts, essays, and lots of book reviews. Our first anthology is out. Here it is, so you can buy it in all formats. And the print copies of our second anthology just arrived. And I'll be going through them this weekend, and probably the book will be available for sale early next week. So very exciting. Keep an eye out for that. Whew. Okay. Oh, and I also have a little bit of news to share with you guys. So I write books. I have a book called Crim Times. I just redid the covers on my Crim books this week, thanks to the support of the Threads writer community, which I really appreciate. And today, the book hit number 9 on Amazon's top 10 humorous sci-fi list. So not quite Free Friday level of bestseller, but it's up there in its category. Very exciting. Thanks, guys. I love you. And I am super stoked. I will have a link to that book in the description box below as well. But let's get into the reviews. Okay, so number 10 on today's list is, there's the picture of it up there, The Piece You Broke by Marleigh Kassidy. The first of 3 books in the paranormal romance series, The Hounds. The other books are $4 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited, for those who don't know, is where you pay $12 a month and you read all the books that you want, kind of like a Netflix for books. And the writers get paid, and you get to read as many books as you want. It's a pretty good deal if you read more than a couple of books a month. So I read this book, and this book has reverse harem romance right in the title, which kind of tells me it's not for me. I don't like romances where the woman has multiple guys. It just seems like way too much work. It's not a particular fantasy of mine, so I'm not really drawn to these books. I do occasionally read them. I love Annika the Vampire Slayer, or at least the early ones when she was still slaying vampires before she got caught up in all that boyfriend drama and was spending like 90% of each book like soothing hurt feelings instead of killing things. But anyway, I digress. So this book begins with a trigger warning. It features a traumatized heroine, scenes of sexual assault, suicide, self-harm, and violence, and more. So that's also a little worrying, but I figure if it's cartoonish violence, not too bad. The book starts with Sage turning 18. She's working at a diner, trying to save up money so she can get out of her house. Then her dad shows up at the diner drunk, screaming about money, and beats her up right in front of her boss and customers. As she's lying on the floor, a handsome stranger comes in and says, "You're my fated mate," and picks her up, stops her dad from hitting her, and takes her away. And she goes with him. And you'd think, oh, don't go with him. It's going to be bad. But the book has fated mates in the title, so it's like, oh, it's that fantasy trope, you know, where they fall in love and live happily ever after. No, he turns out to be an abusive scumbag. So she went from one abuser to another. He beats her up. He gives her to his pack mates to sleep with, and he keeps her chained up, and she tried to escape, and he killed the taxi driver whose car she was trying to get into. Oh, this guy is just like a really bad guy, which is I mean, that's something that happens to abuse victims. They go from one guy who mistreats them to another guy who mistreats them. And that happened with her, but she's really, really trying hard to escape. And I really like that about her, that she was trying to escape in the first chapter when she was saving up money to get out of the house. And then she kept trying to escape from this new guy who's a shapeshifter, who's super strong and who like totally controls and dominates her. And she does escape. And it's a pretty like exciting and sexy action sequence. So keep in mind this book does get explicit, but yeah, so if you're easily shocked, stay away from it. But I was kind of impressed. It was not what I expected. I liked her, and I'm kind of interested to see what happens to her after all this. Anyway, the next book is Dark Hunt by Annika West, the first of 3 books in the urban fantasy series Dragonbound. The other books are $5 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And Lilibet Dominguez-Torres read this for us. And Sophie, can you tell us about this book?
Sure. So Lilibet reports that main character Aster is a half-supernatural detective who works for the Union, a government agency that helps the half-human, half-supernatural beings settle down in society divided by magical hierarchies. Through the first few chapters of the book, it is not clear what exactly her heritage is. All we know is that she has the magical ability to turn camouflage on and off whenever she needs to. An interesting yet faulty magical power that we get to see her use at the very beginning of the story when she's trying to run away and hide from a dragon that's chasing her through the dirty sewers of the city. Dramatic opening, apparently. Compared to other supernatural people who can actually turn themselves invisible and even hide their scent, she's considered a supernatural citizen with weak powers, which is why she spends her days in an office until they finally decide to give her her first field job. Before she ends up running from the dragon around the city sewers, a man asked for her specifically to come to his house in the name of the Union. He needed her to help him open his safe, which he was sure had been tampered with by supernatural intruders. He also needed someone to take their prints and make a report, but something that Aster can't understand is why he'd asked for her out of all the other detectives. This was her first field job, though, so she couldn't say no. After reaching his house, she realizes it's empty, but still decides to break in and see what's going on. After all, she has to make contact with him if she wants to get paid and call this a successful field job. After exploring his house and coming across a random dead pig, she decides to continue her search and go down to the basement. That's not a choice I would make, but that's okay. And it's not until the light sensors illuminate the room that she realizes how badly she's messed up. Now she realizes, okay, she's in a wyvern's lair and he's right there with her in his shifter form, trying to defend his treasures from her. Oh my goodness. Lilibet says that all in all, this was a pretty fun read. She really enjoyed the fast pace of the story and how hilarious the main character is. She thinks she will continue this a bit more just to see what happens next. Right on.
All right. Now we have Enchant by Demelza Carlton. Let me make that bigger for you guys. And this is the first of 27 books in the Romance and Medieval Fairy Tale series, a collection of standalone retold fairy tales. The other books are around $5 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited, but Demelza Carlton, the author, makes a lot of them free. And a lot of these books have been on our Free Friday list. We've also had a lot of our other books on our Free Friday list. Demelza Carlton is a very frequent flyer. So this particular book is a retelling of the Beauty and the Beast story. And I'm not usually a fan of fairy tale retellings, but I really like this one. So Zuleika has inherited her mother's skill for magic. She's the only one of 3 sisters who has it. And her mother died 2 years ago. And the king needs her mother to do some magic for him and sends a messenger to get her mom. Her mom's not there. So she goes in her mom's place. And what the king wants is this a curse to use on his enemy. And Zuleika creates this magic mirror. And whoever looks at it turns into this horrible beast. So the king's all excited. He's going to send this to his worst enemy. And she's like, okay, can I go home to my family now? You promised that if I were to come, then, you know, you'd keep my family safe. And he's like, no, you're staying here. And he makes her a prisoner and he rapes her, even though she's only 16. So the rape isn't particularly graphic, but it's a rape. And so she puts a curse on the king, so that he will never have any children. You know, it's really bad thing to like take a sorcerer's prisoner. You know, he just saw what she can do with this magic mirror, right? So very, very stupid king. But anyway, so she curses him, and then she sneaks out of the castle to escape. So this is a great beginning, very different from the usual take on a Beauty and the Beast story. I liked it, and I might keep reading it this weekend. So yeah, Demelza Carlton is a very popular writer of these kinds of books. All right, next we have number 7 on our list, Dragonforged by Dan Michaelson and D.K. Holmberg, also frequent guests on the Free Friday list. And this is the first of 13 books in the Blood of the Ancients, an epic fantasy series. The other books are $4 to $5 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And Alex Mueller read this for us. Alex, what did you think?
Well, a couple of things, actually. A couple of very good things. Dragonforged is, above all, a story of time-honored tradition, disappointment, and action. So to clarify, I'm not disappointed in the story. No. This immersive fantasy piece follows sorry, I'm misspeaking. In this immersive fantasy piece, young men are trained as warriors for the mission of defending their village from the dangers of the outside world. Pretty standard coming-of-age deal here. There's a twist, though, a very interesting one. That training involves consuming the blood of dead dragons.
Ew.
Those who undergo this process, and yes, admittedly, it does sound disgusting when I put it like that. Well, anyway, this process, known as dragon forging, causes the participant to inherit the strength and endurance of a dragon, effectively turning a regular person into a juggernaut of destruction and mayhem. It's a career path that leads to glory and honor, and honestly something a Klingon would like to do, if this was science fiction. And naturally, our protagonist is someone who doesn't get to do that. In a world populated by superhuman human-dragon hybrids, we get to follow the one person in this village who doesn't qualify. Naturally, that creates problems for our protagonist. They get reduced social status. They possibly get disowned by their parents. That wasn't explicitly stated, but that's the impression I got. And it honestly made sense considering how big a deal the dragon forging process is. They're not having a good time. Now, this is when we learn another twist this world has to offer. It's not just people who get to be dragon forged. It's the wildlife. It's the livestock. Meaning we get to follow a protagonist who can get beaten up by literally everything and everyone in his village. Still, this creates an interesting dynamic for us. Everyone does love an underdog, and our protagonist is certainly an underdog. Literally, there are dogs who are dragon forged, meaning this person is below the dogs in the village. Overall, it's a very interesting situation, to be sure. It's set in an interesting world, and it's one I look forward to reading further.
All right. Yeah, so I've read Holmberg's other books too, and excellent writer. I have to concur. Next we have book number 6, Timepiece. Let me make that bigger for you guys for a second. There you go. Timepiece by Heather Albano. The first of 3 books in the Keeping Time Travel Adventure series. The other books are $4 each and are not on Kindle Unlimited. And this is the first time the author has been on this list. And Sophie, you read this book. What did you think?
I really liked the opening of this book. It has a really strong start. In the opening chapter, we meet Lieutenant Colonel John Fremantle, who is an aide-de-camp to Duke Wellington during the Battle of Waterloo. The setting overall is really well researched, well visualized, and very well brought to life. I could really sort of forecast myself into this situation. which I find unusual, especially for really specific historical fiction like this. Really well done. This would be a convincing historical novel if it were not an engaging speculative history novel instead. The speculative nature of the world becomes clear when Wellington orders the Special Battalion to the field to ward off the French. This battalion is made up of huge slavering things whose flesh hangs slack off the bone that can be trained to mostly not kill men in red jackets. The English fear them almost as much as the French, and they make an immediately gripping historical deviancy that I definitely want to know more about. This is not only a speculative historical novel, however, but a time travel novel, and we are introduced to our Intrepid Traveler in the second chapter. She's Miss Elizabeth Barton, 17-year-old lady of society during the Regency period. Despite being largely bored and impatient with her family's determination for her to marry, she avoids the not like other girls designation by not scorning girls who do appreciate those things, which is refreshing. In the first pages of her chapter, she receives an anonymous gift of a very strange pocket watch, the titular Timepiece. I did not read far enough ahead to see what impetuous but sheltered Elizabeth is going to get up to in war-torn 1815, but it promises to be a fun time. Albano writes clearly and engagingly with a strong skill in visuals and atmosphere that is already serving her well. If you like history, adventure, time travel, or any combo of the above, I think this should be at the top of your to-be-read shelf, and I'd be happy to continue it myself.
All right. So next we have number 5 on today's list. Let me make that a little bit bigger. And then this is the second time this book has been on our list. Legacy of the Lost by Lindsey Sparks. The first of 6 books in the Atlantis Legacy, an urban fantasy series. The other 3 books are $5 each. And the series is not in Kindle Unlimited. So it starts right out with plenty of action, but it's a fake out. It's all in virtual reality. Because Cora is sick and can't go anywhere or do much of anything, because she has seizures whenever anyone touches her. But she's about to get a new virtual reality toy, a full-body virtual reality suit, not just the helmet that she's using now. Then she gets a package from her mother with a mysterious artifact in it and an even more mysterious note. Her mother might have done something that's causing her to have the seizures, and there might be some kind of magical aspect to it, and somehow virtual reality might have a role to play in it. So I was kind of curious about the premise. I love virtual reality. That's where my books are set. The book had a slightly more serious tone than what I was in the mood for at the time, but I might go back and finish it. The author also did a nice redesign of the cover from the first time that I looked at it, so I appreciate that as well. Next, we have Hex After 40 by M.J. Caan, the first of 9 books in the Singing Falls Witches, urban fantasy cozy mystery series. The other books are $5 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And this is the first time this author has been on our list. So I do like cozy magical mysteries, particularly ones where the protagonist is middle-aged and has an evil ex-husband. So I've got high hopes for this book. And so the way it starts out is with Tori. She's married to a successful business executive. She's got a son in college, and she's having dinner with her husband when he tells her that he is leaving her and that he's leaving her right now. And his lawyer will be getting in touch with her in the morning. And so she's a little blindsided by this and shocked. And the guy just packs up and leaves. And the next day, when she calls the lawyer's like, oh, you're calling about all the FBI stuff that's happening. And there's no divorce in progress. What's happened is that the FBI is raiding the company and is about to show up at her house because her husband had been running a Ponzi scheme and has absconded with all the money and with his business partner. And so she's left with like nothing and with a bunch of reporters camped out at her door. So of course, as one does in these books, she goes back to her small town to stay with her mom. And when she gets to that hometown as she's driving in, she almost hits a cat, picks it up, takes it to her mom. Her mom calls somebody who knows how to deal with these animals because it turns out that a regular vet can't deal with this cat because this is a shapeshifter cat. And in fact, a lot of people in this small town are shapeshifters and somebody's killing them. Oh, and her mom is a witch. And oh, so is Sophie, and nobody's told her any of this. Because of course, that's how these books start. So it is a very familiar plot. Well, the Ponzi scheme is new. But it is cozy. It's kind of like watching an episode of Murder, She Wrote. You know exactly how it's going to go, but it's a cozy small town. You know she's going to solve the mystery. You know she's going to meet a cute detective. So, and everything's going to work out with only minor inconveniences. So, yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that I like to read. So, yeah, I might very well stick with it. And if I do, I'll probably finish all the books in the series, because that's the way I roll. All right, next we have an EMP book, The Last Night by Robert J. Walker, a standalone post-apocalyptic EMP thriller. The author has been on our list multiple times because apparently people love the genre. EMP stands for electromagnetic pulse. It's a kind of explosion or solar flare or nuclear explosion that takes out all electronics and leaves people, animals, and plants unharmed. And Alex KOROLOV, our community member, read this one, but he's not here today. So Sophie, do you want to tell us about this book?
Sure, absolutely. So as Maria said, this is an EMP story. Well, I've had my video stopped. What the fuck? Excuse me.
I think I hit the wrong button.
Whoops. I mean, I can still read. That's fine. Let's see. All right. Sure. So this is an EMP story where an electromagnetic pulse, I don't mind, this is fine.
I think I accidentally hit, there you go. I hit your video camera button instead of your pin button to make you bigger.
Gotcha.
Because I want people to see you.
even after
technology.
All right, so once more from the top. As Maria said, this is an EMP story where an electromagnetic pulse has wiped out all electronic devices, including lights, phones, and vehicles, and leaves humanity scrambling to survive in a powerless world. Compared to other EMP books Alex has reviewed, this one has a slow start. He read the first 3 chapters, and each chapter introduces a different character as they go through the EMP. In the first chapter, Caan and Judd are 2 teenage brothers attending a heavy metal show in a large stadium with some of their friends and thousands of other people. Just as the opening act finishes and goes off stage, the power goes out. The crowd goes into a frenzied panic, and one of Caan's friends falls to the ground and is trampled by panicking people. Yikes. In chapter 2, Theo and William are 2 older dudes who are on a 3-day dirt bike trip out in the desert. Theo is Caan and Judd's dad. The 2 friends are sitting around at night talking about life and drinking beer. Suddenly, their cell phones go dead. When they try to start their parked bikes, they turn out to be dead as well. In chapter 3, we go to Theo's wife, Marissa, who is on the porch at their house having some cocktails with her neighbors. One of the neighbors owns 8 dogs who are currently outside, and they go nuts, howling and yelping. Right after that, all the power goes out. Alex says he understands why all the characters are connected, but after 3 chapters of meeting all these different family members in different situations, he was pretty bored. Some other EMP stories also introduce a lot of characters, and those have always enjoyed those less than the ones that focus on fewer characters and have more action from the start. This one's no different. He doesn't plan on reading any further.
All right. Okay, next we have book number 2 on today's list. Let me make that bigger for you guys. Oh, success. Alien Tyrant by Ursa Dax, the first of 13 books in the Fated Mates of the Sea Sand Warlords, a sci-fi romance series. The other books are $5 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And this is the first time this author has been on our Free Friday list, but it's not the first time we had a naked alien guy chest on our Free Friday list. The alien romances are a super popular genre, and in them, you have a hunky alien guy with some kind of minor alien characteristic, like blue skin or horns or a tail or something. And for some reason, he's thrown together with a human woman through some kind of really improbable series of events. usually having to do with the fact that the alien species has not enough women. Kind of like a Mars needs women kind of thing, except they're from all kinds of other planets. So I am not a fan of this genre. They tend to be pretty sexy and a little formulaic, but if you like that formula, you know what you're going to get and you're going to enjoy yourself, which is why this book is number 2 on today's bestseller list. Anyway, so this book starts with a guy named Burode, who's one of these alien warriors. He's got claws, he's got a tail, and of course he doesn't have a mate, and he's really longing for one. And then a magical being shows up. It looks like a giant snake. And when he does, he knows that he's going to find out who his fated mate is. And he puts on his loincloth and straps on his knives, grabs his stone axe and spear, and follows this giant snake to a magic pool of snake blood, where he strips naked and goes into this pool and has a vision of his fated mate. And she looks weird. She's got no tail, no claws. She's got a perky little nose and round ears. She's human. She's a human. And so he's very confused about this. Then we switch to the human woman's point of view. Her name is Cece, and she also has a vision of him in a dream, but doesn't think twice about it. She lives in Toronto, where she's finishing a PhD in linguistics. And she lost her grandmother recently, her last remaining relative on Earth. And she goes jogging outside. She's listening to Lady Gaga when she's grabbed and thrown into a cargo van. When she wakes up, she's in a room with other prisoners. All of them look like they've been in a struggle, like she was, because she tries to fight to avoid being kidnapped. So she's a little beaten up. And so she thinks that they're all fallen victim to a bizarre sex trafficking ring, which is an obvious conclusion to come to. But no, the people taking them prisoner are US Army, working in coordination with other governments on Earth. So there's somebody there from France and people there from other countries. And so they're going to be allowed to go home if their mission is a success. And their mission is on some alien planet. And they can't leave because they're already in space on the spaceship. Apparently, Earth's planetary, multiplanetary explorations are a lot further along than we thought they were, because this is set in the present day. And all the governments have been keeping it a secret. So the plot is a bit far-fetched for my taste. But I do like both of those main characters, both Cece and the alien guy. I don't think I'll be sticking with the book. It's not really my thing, but it is definitely an enjoyable read if this is the kind of thing that you're into. Before we go on to book number 1 in this list, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. Marie Leclerc, Humphrey Price, Alexander KOROLOV, Avery Parks, Terrence Smith, Brad Center, David Perlmutter, Melody Friedenthal, Anastasia KOROLOV, and Amira Lutfi. We're here because of you guys, and the Patreon support lets us pay for original stories. So all the original stories that you see and that are in our anthologies are there thanks to the kind support of our Patreon members. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And now to book number 1 on today's list. And it's not a book, it is 10 books. And the Stormborn Saga is an epic fantasy series that has 14 books in it. The other books are $4 to $6 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. So this gives you a giant start to the series, whether or not you yourself are a Kindle Unlimited subscriber. And I'm a big fan of epic fantasy, and I'm also a big fan of getting 10 books for free all at once. And I've got high hopes for this one. And it starts out really, really well, guys. So Valorin is an orphan. He lives with a woman he calls his aunt, though she's not. He spends his morning gathering eels and selling them to the fishermen in this village. And his aunt is part elven, and she found him. He was kind of washed up by the sea after a storm. So people call him Storm Child. And he likes the ocean, he likes storms, so he doesn't mind it when people call him that. And then a ship full of dwarves sails in, and he's thinking, oh, he can sell some eels to them, but they don't want eels. They're looking for another ship, a ship full of elves, and they're willing to pay quite a bit of money for it. The dwarves leave, and then the elves show up in their ship, and some of the villagers want to capture them and turn them in for the reward. And the elves explain that the dwarves are pirates and the elves haven't done anything wrong. And Valoran's aunt steps in to protect them so they can repair their ship. And she herself is elven. And one of those new elves was also born from the sea and gives Varen a magic ring. And the ring glows when he puts it on, showing that when he goes underwater, if he's wearing the ring, he'll be able to breathe. But while they're having dinner and fixing their ship, the money-hungry villagers have poisoned some of the elves, and they lit a signal fire to tell the dwarves that the elves were there. And the dwarves show up just as the elves are leaving, and there's a big battle. His aunt winds up throwing magic powers around, and Valoran winds up escaping with the other elves. And they barely are pulling away as the dwarves start shooting at them. It's a very exciting beginning. I liked Valoran very much. And the action is very fast-paced, very immersive, feels very real. And I might be sticking with this book this weekend. It's exactly the kind of thing I like. All right, so those were the books on today's top 10 Free Friday list. If you want to be sure not to miss any of these, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter, where you can get all these in your mailbox at 5 p.m. every Friday afternoon Eastern Time, so you can grab the books before they're gone. They usually do not stay free for long. Authors and publishers make them free temporarily in order to drum up interest in the series or in a new book release or whatever reason they've got, and then they stop being free. So grab them while they're free and act quick. All right, so thank you everybody for watching this. Thank you, Sophia and Alex, for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Maria.
And I'll see all of you next Friday. Bye. And I've forgotten how to stop recording. Oh, there it is.